We're going to the library. This is cozy. It's very hot, it's still too hot to drink. Now I love being black, but I'm really struggling with being seen right now. We have to move around a little bit. Okay, hopefully you can see me better now. It's not even like it's dark outside, it's just that there's been no sun. Like I haven't seen the sun at all today. Don't know where she is. It's just been cloudy and rainy and grey and just overcast and generally not good lighting. So I thought I would lean into the coziness of it, and then I forgot that like I don't have very good light in my room anyway, and when there's no natural light it's almost impossible to see me. But hopefully with all the lamps on and this overhead light you should be able to to see me a bit better. Anyway, welcome to this video. I thought I would share what I read last month and what I'm planning to read this month in May. I'm aware that May is like well and truly started and we're over a week in at this point, but I don't think it's too late to share, so that's what we're going to do. I have my tea, I have my Earl Grey tea. It's very good stuff. I can't believe that I am 5 months into my year-long book buying ban. This is the longest I've ever gone in my adult life without buying a book. If you haven't seen my January reading video, then you might not know, but I am swearing off buying books for an entire year, just because when I got new bookshelves and I realized how many books I actually owned, it was kind of I mean, it was kind of disgusting, really. Most of my books, I'd say about 85% are secondhand, and so I think I got it in my head that like, oh, you know, if I'm buying it at a charity shop or like a book sale or whatever, then it's fine like to have this many books. And the thing is, I do read a lot, but not enough to justify having this many books. Not enough to even have like an end in sight for how many years it's going to take me to read them. So I have been very disciplined, which surprised me, especially because every time I go into a charity shop now, like it's just second nature. Like I make a beeline for the book section and I'll see books that I want to read and I'm like, oh, 50p, I should definitely get it. And I have to like properly tell myself, no, like we are not doing that. We are getting a handle on our overconsumption. I think because I tend to buy things secondhand or get them, you know, as gifts or like used already, I tend to think like it's not that big a deal to have a lot of stuff, of books specifically, but overconsumption is overconsumption whether you're giving that money to a good cause or not. So we are 5 months in, I haven't bought a single book. I'm incredibly proud of myself, but I have been using the library a bit more, because it feels like book shopping without actually being book shopping. So I'll show you what I got from the library a little later, but first Here's what I read in April. So I actually only read 2 books in April, both audiobooks that I got from the library. It was a slow month for me, but I managed to get back on track with my reading goal. I think my reading goal is, what is it? 35 books? Let me double check. I'm on Storygraph, by the way, if you want to be friends on there. I'm trying to get into the habit of properly using it and like actually tracking my reading as in live time as I'm reading it. So yeah, if you want to follow me on Storygraph, that would be fun. I'll follow you right back. But yeah, my reading goal for this year is 35 books. I typically read about, like without forcing it, around anywhere between 40 and 50 books anyway. But 35 is like a manageable goal. But yeah, I have read 13 books so far this year, so I'm finally back on track. So the first book that I read in April was A Kind of Spark by Elle Macnicol. This is a middle grade children's book set in Edinburgh, and it follows 11-year-old Addie, who is autistic, and she discovers that her little town just outside Edinburgh participated in witch trials, and she wants to create like a memorial to all the women who were accused of being witches and were subsequently murdered and executed. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I tried to read it last year, like I started it, and it was loaned from the library and I didn't manage to finish it in time, and it went back, and I've been on the wait list for so long, so I was so glad to finally get to read it. This is a book that I'm definitely gonna think about for a long time. I really, really related to Addie, the protagonist, not because we share a name or anything, but just, you know, feeling the way that she feels and learning about this injustice that has happened, and that like desire to see it made right as best as she can. I loved just the whole cast of characters in the book. They were so well written. It feels very Scottish, which I like as a Scottish person, and I can't wait to read more from Elle Macnicol. Yeah, it's a beautiful story. Addie comes up against bullies, both like bullies at school and also adults who just don't understand autism. They don't understand difference or why Addie would relate to the women who were accused of witchcraft. I mean, it's such a beautiful story. Her like desire to see change and her like, persistence, I think, is so lovely, and great representation for neurodivergent people as well. I just really love this book. It was so cozy and so heartwarming. There are moments that are really quite like jarring and tragic and sad. Obviously, like people were accused of witchcraft and killed for being different, for not being holistic and neurotypical. But the author handles all of these themes with like such sensitivity, and all of the people in Addie's life that are there supporting her. It's just such a nice book. For context, I do read a lot of children's books because I predominantly write children's fiction, but even if I didn't, I would still read children's books, and I would encourage everyone to read children's books. Even if you're like 40, 50, 60, 70, you should be reading children's books. I think they're some of the most thought-provoking, well-written books that are available on the market. I think people undervalue children's literature, but honestly, it's what gets children to become lifelong readers. And yeah, Kind of Spark is definitely, I rate it 5 stars. It's definitely like one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far, and probably one of my favorite ever children's books, actually. I hear that there's a TV show on BBC, but I don't have a TV license, so I'm gonna have to wait until I go home for the summer at some point so that I can use my parents' TV license and watch it. But yeah, this was a great book, and I will definitely be reading more from Elle Macnicol. Yeah, no. 5 stars, 10 out of 10. No notes, definitely read it if it sounds somewhat interesting to you. I'm terrible at doing book reviews, I'm so sorry. Let's move on to the next book. The Wake Up Call Call by Beth O'Leary. Now, I have been a Beth O'Leary fan since The Flat Share came out. In the whole world of like romance writers, I know that if no one's got me, Beth O'Leary's got me. One of my favorite authors ever, regardless of genre, like favorite romance author, one of my favorite just anytime authors. I've read every single book that she's put out, and I've liked them all to varying degrees, but none have been less than like 4 stars for me. I just really, really love everything that Beth O'Leary writes, and I hope that she never stops writing books. And yeah, I should probably tell you what the book's about now. So The Wake Up Call is about 2 hotel workers, Izzy and Lucas, who are working in a struggling hotel that is predicted to close by the end of the year. And then they find like a bunch of rings that have been lost in the lost property at the hotel, and instead of selling them, they decide to, well, Izzy decides that she's on a mission to like reunite the owners of these lost wedding and engagement rings. It's like a second chance. Well, is it a second chance romance? I don't know. Basically, they have history. Izzy professed her feelings to Lucas a year prior. He kind of laughed at her confession of feelings, and so they have been like arch enemies ever since, and they're very competitive. And they decide that this ring thing that they're doing, trying to return rings to the rightful owners, will be like a bet between them who can return the most rings. It does lean heavily on the miscommunication trope, which is one of my least favorite tropes in romance, but Beth O'Leary is a genius and she does it so well, so I can't even hold that against her, because yeah, it's a gorgeous book. It's funny, it's smart, it's really engaging. Like, you're rooting for the 2 of them, and even like all the obstacles that come in between them getting together, it doesn't feel forced like a lot of books sometimes do. I listened to it as an audiobook, and it did take me a wee minute to get into it. Controversial take. I struggle when books are narrated by men. It's like a little jump scare in my ears every single time I hear a man's voice. I'm like, why are you here? I don't understand. But after I got over the initial shock of, because it's narrated from both perspectives, after I got over the initial shock of one of the narrators being a man, it was fine. I think that is a me problem and not a universal experience, so don't let that stop you from reading the book. If you decide to read it as an audiobook, it's fine. He's a great narrator. I think it's one of the guys from Sex Education, actually, but yeah, that's just a me thing, but I loved it, and I think I gave it, let's just consult with Storygraph, make sure I'm saying the right thing. Yeah, it was a 4 stars for me. It was kind of long. Maybe it was 10 and a half hours on audiobook. It felt that long. But yeah, lovely wee story. I've already seen that Beth O'Leary is working on the next one, which, if it comes out this year, I can't buy it. That's the thing, I have every single one of her books, like a physical copy, but obviously I'm on a book buying ban and I didn't buy this one. If this other one comes out this year, I'm going to request it as soon as possible at the library, until I can get my hands on my own copy. But yeah, The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary, lovely book, would definitely recommend. It is kind of Christmassy, obviously it's set between Christmas and New Year's, but I mean, that matters very little. Okay, let me show you what I got from the library just now. These are not all on my May TBR, but I would do a little library haul. First up, Half the World Away by Mike Gale. Last year I read All the Lonely People, which is my first book by Mike Gale. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know that Mike Gale was black, and that was holding me back from reading his book. That sounds racist, I'm so sorry. For me to read a male writer, they can't be white cis het and I'll like leap for the book. It has to be recommended, or like I already know and trust the author. They just don't, white cis het men do not make up the majority of my bookshelves. And so I'd see Mike Gill's books all the time, like in charity shops and everything, and I'd be like, oh, okay. Didn't know he was black. Didn't know he turned out full black man. And I was like, well, now I must read him, and I know that's problematic. Please don't cancel me. But yeah, I loved All the Lonely People, and so I was like, saw this in the library, and I was like, I'm gonna pick it up. I have no clue what it's about. The tagline is just same city, different streets, same mother, different lives. I'm excited to read it. I'm literally not even gonna bother reading the blurb. I'm just gonna read it. And then this one, Everything's Fine by Cecilia Ribes. Again, no clue. Just seen some people on Instagram reading it, and I was like, okay, we'll find out what it's about. I know that it's about interracial couple working in banking. Not my not my story. I was gonna say could it be me, but that's a little forced. It could be me, but not the banking part. What have you got to lose when you fall in love? That's the tagline. I'm interested to see what this is about. It's a debut, which I love. I love reading debuts, especially when they're very hyped, because I want to see if they're actually good or not. But I'm excited to read this. And then another children's pick, The Secret Summer by Ali Standish. Again, very little clue. All I know is it's about a girl, Miranda, who is sent to spend summer at the place where her mum grew up, and she kind of uncovers secrets in this little town. Excited to read this one. But that is actually not my May TBR. This is my May TBR. Like I said, we are already into May, so I've already finished the first book in my May TBR, which is Once More with Feeling by Alyssa Sussman. I read her other book, Funny You Should Ask, last year, and I quite enjoyed it, so I thought, let me read this one. It's been on my shelf for a while. See why I shouldn't be buying more books. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's perfect for theatre kids, former or current. It's basically a second chance romance, which I think all of her books have been. Oh, here's my phone. You know you're a grandma when you set an alarm at 8:30 to get ready for bed. But yeah, it's about two characters who kind of like former pop stars. So one is kind of, I guess, positioned as kind of like a Britney Spears-esque character, and the other is a former member of a boy band. And in the past, they had an affair. That kind of blew up her career, but his career was perfectly fine afterwards. And they are put together when he is directing a Broadway show, and she is cast as the lead in it, and they kind of like reunite and kind of work through all of their past. And it's a really good book. If you are like a theatre kid or a theatre nerd or anyone like that, you're gonna really love it. I think that she does such a good job of like treading the line between backstory and what's happening in the present. I think sometimes I'm guilty of it as well. When I'm writing backstory, I'm just dumping so much on the page, but she's very, very clever with how much she gives away. Like, you already know when you start the book that they had an affair, like it's on the blurb, but you just don't know how it all plays out. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And my next book for May, which I've already showed you, Half the World Away. I'm going to start this one tonight. And then, because it's May, Mayflies by Andrew O'Hagan. I don't know anything about this book other than it's like two friends who reunite after 30 years, after like the summer of 1986. Two friends reunite after this like defining summer in their lives. That's all I know, but it's been on my shelf for a wee while. I got it in a charity shop a couple of years ago, and the author is Glaswegian, which is always going to encourage me to read a book if it's set in Scotland, written by a Scottish person, vaguely tied to Scotland. I will read it. So I'm excited to see this one. I think I've said the words I'm excited to far too many times in this video, but it is what it is. And lastly, I mean, I have this for a couple of months at library, so it's not on my May TBR. If I read it, I read it. If I don't read it, it can wait till June. But lastly, because this book has been haunting me, Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. I lent this to my sister when I first got it, and she's like held it hostage for like almost like coming up to 2 years, I think. God, 2 years, really? I don't even know, but I finally got it back, so we're gonna read that. I'm very excited. As far as I know, this is like a heist drama about Chinese American, or are they Chinese? Yes, Chinese American students who are repatriating artifacts that have been stolen by Western museums and galleries. I mean, that sounds perfect, right? That sounds so good. So I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So yeah, these are the books that I'm planning to read this month. Already read this one, so these are the books that I'm planning to read this month. Anyway, I'm just gonna end the video here because these sounded like sitting down and talking videos. I'm not good at them. I hate the sound of my own voice. Editing this is gonna be a sensory nightmare. So I should just stop talking. Anyway, what are you reading this month, or what have you read recently that you've enjoyed? Because the chances of me having that book, any book that you mentioned on my bookshelf, are quite high. There are too many books here, so if you've read a book recently that you've enjoyed, or you're planning to read one, let me know. I might check it out as well if I haven't, and we could read it together. Follow me on Storygraph if you would like to, and I will see you. I hate this. I love it. I don't like talking to a cat. I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.